Good morning. It's Thursday, October 28th, 2021 at 9:05 a.m. We will call this meeting of the Animal Service Center of the Mesilla Valley Board of Directors meeting to order. If you wouldn't mind, join me in the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can we get a roll call, please?
Board Member McMahon is absent. Board Member Enriquez.
Present.
Board Member Gandara. Not yet. Hopefully we'll have her later. Board Member Trujillo is absent. Board Member Flores.
Here.
Board Member Beta Stuve.
Here.
And Chairman Sanchez.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Thacker, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Also, Councilor Gondara said that she could be available by phone if needed to make quorum. Otherwise, she would not be in. So would you like me to make the necessary steps to have her on the phone, or is your current quorum satisfactory?
I think if the board members that are present are going to be able to attend the rest of the meeting, I think we'll be all right without her.
Okay, I'll let her know. The only change to the agenda that I have is I'm actually here to do the presentation. I apologize. It's not going to be Dr. Trina Haddon. We didn't know with my surgery if I was going to be able to make it, but here I am.
Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Then we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. So if I can get a motion to approve the minutes of the Oh, sorry, thank you. Okay, then I need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Betesuvi,
Second by Flores.
and a second by Councilor Flores.
Board Member Enriquez.
Yes.
Board Member Flores.
Yes.
Board Member Beta Stuve.
Yes.
And Chairman Sanchez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have an agenda now. All right, now we're going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is the approval of the minutes from the ASCMV board meeting held on September 23rd, 2021. If I can get a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Second by Flores.
Moved by Vice Chair Betestuvi, seconded by Councilor Flores. Can I get a roll call, please?
Board Member Enriquez.
Yes.
Board Member Flores.
Yes.
Board Member Beta Stuve.
Yes.
Chairperson Sanchez.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on now to reports and presentations. I don't know if Mr. Hahn, I don't see him here, and I will have to take responsibility for this. I had asked that the CFPP be added onto the agenda so that we can have some time for our community partners. I failed to directly contact Mr. Hahn, so if that will be something I need to do, and so we'll be looking at making sure we have either one of our community partners or rescues presenting during our November and December agendas, or the CFPP, so that way we can ensure we're getting some more additional feedback from our community members. So then we'll move on to agenda item 5B, which is city and county ACO reports. Ms. Ward, good morning.
Good morning. Mary Lou Ward, Supervisor for Doñana County Animal Control. Let me pull up ours.
Is it not going into slideshow mode, or?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it right now.
On the bottom, I know on the bottom right.
There it is.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. For Doñana County, for the month of September of 2021, we'll go ahead and start with our reported stray animals. So for our reported stray animals, we had 276 reported stray animals. Out of those 276, 161 animals were picked up. Dividing those up a little bit further, 45 of those were stray cats and 116 of those were stray dogs. In addition to those, we had 20 sick or injured animals that were picked up. 7 of those were cats and 13 of those were dogs. We also had 15 owner surrender dogs. Here's a chart of our 4-year comparison of our stray animals so that you can compare the years from 2018 to 2021, and you can see the difference. Of course, 2020 was our COVID year, and then you can see up to this year. Looking at our 4-year comparison as a return to owner, September we returned 35 animals in the field to their owner. Again, you can see the numbers at the bottom as a comparison. Compared to last month was 23, this September was 35. And then looking at the additional animals that we picked up, we discussed the ones in red already, and then we also had 4 animals that were picked up for welfare holds. That could be something like animal cruelty or something like that. Shelter quarantines were 3. We had home quarantines were not picked up, but they were done home at their homes. So there was 2 quarantines, and then of course 1 was picked up at the court hold facility for quarantine there. This is left in here as a reference to give you an example of what the geodistricts are. And then dividing those up by the strays that were picked up in the geodistricts. District 1, Commissioner Sanchez, you'll be happy with this one, which is 0. District 2 was 32. District 3 was 28. District 4 was 41. 5 was 24. 6 was 7, and 7 was 29. That gives us that 161 total. And then this is just dividing this, getting a little bit further into our stats, looking at what we picked up. These were the cats that were picked up by the districts. If you could look at that, you could see and get the further numbers of what cats were picked up in what districts, so we can know what our hotspot areas are. And then again, the same thing when we're looking at our dogs. Where are the dogs coming from? And these are the strays. These aren't animals that were owner released or anything like that. These are only the strays that we're looking at. And then these are the owner release animals. These are the reasons for owner release. We had 5 that were aggressive, 2 that were killing livestock, 1 that was deemed vicious and or dangerous, 1 that was sick, 3 of them they were unable to care for the animals, and then 3 of them they were unable to keep in their home or their apartment. And for that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Are there any questions for Ms. Ward?
Okay.
Thank you. Officer Jimenez, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Gino Jimenez. I am the Animal Control Supervisor for City of Las Cruces, and I will present to you our numbers for September 2021. So our reported strays, we had a total of 480 reported strays for that last month. Out of those, 224 were GOA, meaning the officer did not have contact with that animal. We were able to apprehend a total of 256 animals. 216 of those were impounded at the Animal Service Center, 115 of those were dogs, and 101 were cats. We were successful in field RTOing 40 animals back to their owner, and we had we had 18 that we attempted to field RTO, but were unsuccessful. So you'll see that those numbers are included in that 256. So that gave us a total of 58 identifiable animals. Next slide is our graph for our 3-year comparison. And you can see that we are still in that trend that our average with 480. Our low was last year at 370 again as our COVID year. So those numbers are kind of an exception to the rule. We're getting back on our trend now that some of the restrictions have been lifted. Here is our 3-year field RTO comparison. Again, we're staying within our trend. This year or this month was a little high at 40. So hopefully those numbers continue to go in that direction. Next is our reasons for owner releasing animals. 7 dogs for aggression. 1 was actually fighting with the owner's other dogs. Excuse me. 5, the owners chose to release them because they could not keep them confined. They continually escaped. 1 was a bite case, a bit of pedestrian as they were walking by. And 1 was a dog that the owner was unable to control, and it was destroying their home. Next is our reasons we were unable to field RTO. 13, there was no contact by phone or at the residence. 1, the microchip was not registered. 1, the registered person was not the owner, meaning that that microchip information was not updated with the correct information. Next is the registered person gave the dog away, but he could not remember who he gave the dog to. And again, that microchip information was never updated. Next one is the officer did not make contact with anyone at home. The brother of the registered person answered the phone, and he would relay the message that his dog, the owner's dog, was at the ASCMV. And finally, the officer was able to call the registered owner who hung up on them. He went to the resident to let them know that he had picked up their dog, and a female resident slammed the door in his face, telling him, "That's not my dog." So again, we were unable to field RTO that animal. And I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Officer Jimenez? All right. We're all quiet today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on to agenda item 5C, which is shelter statistics and activities. Getting around pretty well with that thing there, Clint.
I'm glad that it has wheels. That's all I can say. Clint Thacker, Executive Director of the Animal Service Center, Mesilla Valley. Thank you very much for this opportunity to report today to the Board of Directors. And let's hope I get as many questions as the others. Before I begin, though, I want to give a shout out to the ASCMV staff. Not only did they put together pretty much on a month's notice a spectacular drive-through clinic that was on the 24th of October, last Sunday, but they did it with style. I mean, we had volunteers in mass there. We had mass, M-A-S-S, not mask. They were in masks too, I'm sure. But between the hours of 9 and 2 is when it officially started. But when we got there, I should say when staff, I was not able to attend, but when staff got there at 7 o'clock to start setting up, there were already people in line wanting to get into the snake line, as we like to call it. Just a phenomenal job from everybody. There was nobody saying, this isn't my job, about holding animals or getting names. We basically said, if you have certain skills, we'd like you to be here in these tents. Otherwise, just go fill spots. And they were excited to do so. In doing that, we had 499 rabies vaccines administered, 432 DHPP vaccines, 158 Bordetella, 68 feline vaccines, and 236 microchips, all done between the hours of 9 and 2 p.m. So special thanks to them. If you see our Facebook page, you go to there, we do have quite a bit of photos that you can look at. We had a photographer come and donate their time, as well as somebody with a drone that took pictures for us of the setup. So it was great to have that community involvement. So at the ASCMV, currently we have 478 animals. This is as of yesterday, 297 dogs, 181 cats there at the center. Our intake, 505 dogs in 2019. In 2021, we had 406. Again, I'm not going to review 2020 that much. It was really a fluke year. However much I would love to have those numbers back, it doesn't look like that it's going to happen right now. But as we continue to make changes and educate, we hope that those numbers will come back down to there. 315 cats in 2021. So a total of 725 versus the 888 in 2019. Our transfers continue to really be how we're getting animals out of the ASCMV alive. Special thanks to our local action program for animals for all they're doing. 6 dogs and 28 cats is phenomenal for us, especially here locally, because there's no cost for us to transport them. Whereas you see on the other column there, the very top, New Hope Rescues located in Colorado, Colorado City, 44 dogs and 4 cats. That costs gas money and stay for the individual going up. And so we just appreciate all of these individuals that are taking, or these individual rescue organizations that are taking these animals. We're a total of 158 animals. So we did have a little bit of an increase in returns, and the biggest one was adding the cats to it. So behavior problem, we had 4 dogs come back. 2 the landlord doesn't allow, and 3 had some lifestyle changes. Now again, these are not within the month. They didn't, it's not like they adopted them and then brought them back 2 weeks later. These, we report as far as how many returns that we get. Cats, we had 1 that was allergy and lifestyle changes. There was 5. This is the one that really tells the story of how things are going on at the ASCMV. We included the percentage there. If this is your first time watching or reviewing these numbers, we go a lot by percentage because of the high numbers and also the low numbers of 2020. So the first one is a good example. 2019, we had 30%, whereas of our outcomes was adoptions. And then we had 20% in 2021, which was 151. Reclaims, we were at 58 for 2021. Rescues, a 21, almost 22%. Community cats, 16.7%, and that's really the one with the implementation of the program, TNR program, with the city. That has really helped us with our live release numbers and getting animals out alive, cats out alive. So that reduced our euthanasia number. 18.6% was our outcome percentage. So it's turned out to be a 78.3%, a 3-year high for this time period. So if you remember, usually it's feral cats is the #1 reason for euthanasia, and that significantly changed. Now we're into medical. So what does that mean for the ASCMV? What that means is we need to work on reducing the number of animals in the center so we have that adequate quality of care that we've spoken of. Our veterinarians and our vet staff is working really hard. The care that we give them is the best that we can adequately do at this time. And I hope that comes across as what I'm trying to say, meaning that it's harder to care for 700 dogs than it is for 500 dogs. And so we give them the adequate care, the minimum care that's needed. But obviously if we had 300 versus 500, it would be even better. So we are continuing to look at, we have Dr. Haddon is incredible at continually to look at new ways to treat and trying those. Also changing intake procedures. I mean, we're looking at everything to help the medical side, how animals flow through the center, because we've got to never be able to put a stop to, but we've got to really limit how these diseases are being transferred on. The biggest challenge is the ASCMV is just not set up for correct cleaning. In other words, where the animal is out of the cage and we're able to scrub and clean every single time with the animal out. Right now what they're doing is we usually have them separated with the corunda bed that's there, or we'll shift kennels down, but that means every animal needs to go down like a snake method, down to each kennel. It's incredibly time consuming, but we're working on it. We're looking forward to the new center being built where it doesn't have to happen that way.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Allens.
would you go back to that slide? Thank you. It looks to me like all of the euthanasia included cats only.
That all of them do?
Well, the yellow bar is for cats.
Correct.
There is no bar for dogs.
The green one. You see the green one there?
And that's I can't see it on this chart. Okay.
Maybe the glare is cutting it off there.
It wasn't tilted enough. Now I see it. Thank
All right.
you. There we go. Okay.
Total number of visitors is up quite a bit from August, 816. And that's the number that we really like to be about. May, June, September really kept us at that number. Appointments, we had 90% of our appointments that were made were kept, and then 58% of those were finalized as adoptions. Our webpage views still hovering around that 35 to 40,000 mark with 37,436. And again, for those who are watching for the first time, that's not original views. That is every time you click on a page. So if you look at an animal and it pops up their page, that's one hit, and you go back to the main page, that's a hit, and then you click on another animal, that's a hit. So Facebook views, 2,548. We've had kudos to our grant writer and also our rescue coordinators and also our volunteer coordinator doing a tremendous job on keeping things fresh and new on Facebook. We appreciate that. So this is a new slide. If you remember, we have the Wilson Binkley included Instagram and Snapchat into the media plan for this year. So if you look at these numbers, I hate to admit this, but I don't know what impressions are. I think it's smiley face or like or whatever it is, but it's a high number and I'm impressed by it. Most importantly though, those clicks on the ad is really what we're looking at. So when we say we have a presence on Instagram and Snapchat, Wilson Binkley puts an ad on both of those. It's just an ad that says adoption, save lives, something cute and fluffy that keeps people interested. So that click is the one that clicks on the ad is what takes them to our web page. And instantly they're flooded with images of our animals and they fall in love and come and adopt, and that's what we're looking at. Now, this is separate from what we have. We have our own Instagram page or Instagram account. We have our own Snapchat that we're working on as well. So content will continually come out on both of those. And those are our pets of the week. So I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Okay. Let's see, we'll start with Councilor Flores, and then we'll go to Commissioner Allens if he's...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for presentation, Clint. As to adoptions, is there any education prior to the adoption? I think that I asked before whether there was any way, well, no, that was a different thing. But education for prospective adopters, do you have any, like a video they can watch, or where you sit and speak with them in order to minimize any returns? Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, when I first came on, we had this questionnaire. It was a very lengthy questionnaire, asked us questions like, do you rent? How many people in your family? And this big, long questionnaire, and the trainings and everything that I've been taught that's new says, why are we asking these questions when, one, we're not an enforcement agency, and two, we don't have the manpower to go out and verify these things, and three, why are we asking them? Let's make this as painless as possible to do an adoption. So we changed our questionnaire significantly to the base information we need and moved more into a conversation with the individual that's adopting. So what that means is we'll have a conversation with them. Thank you for coming in today. We appreciate you looking at this animal. What brought you here to look at this animal? And they'll answer the question. So that's one piece of information. And then we can go into, once we know their situation, oh, you live in an apartment. You do know the St. Bernard thrives on space and activities. Do you think this is really the best fit for your confined situation? So that's where the education part comes in. We also do quite a bit of information, or give them quite a bit of information and review it with them in a packet that we give them. It talks about the power of 3. It says 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months is what we suggest, and we tell the individual what each step provides, what to expect the first 3 days and the first 3 weeks and the first 3 months. We go over basic care of the animal, of what's going to be needed, vaccines that are mandatory. We would go over licensing that's required. So yeah, there's quite a bit of information that is given and education done there at the beginning.
And do you keep any data on these adoptions insofar as then going back to look when they're returned? Do you go back and look at that data to see where maybe the questions or the interview didn't fit the match? I mean, is there any way of measuring that? Or probably there is a way to measuring it, but do you take that data? Do you review it when the animal is returned?
We look at it really when the animal's returned more than once, is what we look at. We ask the reason why.
Excuse me, different families, different adopter? Okay.
Yeah, so if a person brings an animal back and then it gets adopted again, and they bring the animal back. And our computer software is able to track the reason for surrender. So we can pull that up at any time, what they say. So if we get an animal that's been adopted twice and been returned twice, that's when we start looking at that data and find out why. Is it a behavior issue? Okay, maybe we need to contact and get the animal into some behavior courses. Or we, at the very least, need to tell the new adopter, this guy has been, or this lady has been returned twice. So this is the reason why. What are you going to do to prevent that? Or this is the challenge you have ahead. So,
And-
yeah.
I'm sorry. Clint.
No, I was done. Thank you.
I'm sorry. So, and do you anyway have questions that elicit or instill or give you any kind of impression as to whether a feeling, for lack of a better word, but I mean, you have to get that information, draw that information out for a prospective adopter. Do you ask any questions like that? And I can't think specifically, but do you do anything like that to draw out a person's personality and how that's going to adapt to having an animal in the home?
Not that I can recall. We don't try to match personalities with the animals. We consider that match when the animal and the person have their the Get Acquainted series, or the appointment that the person makes. They're the ones that say it's a good match. We do step in, like I said, if the situation isn't the best, like if the lifestyle doesn't match the animal. If it's an old Chihuahua and you like to jog, let's get you something else.
Get him a Jack Russell Terrier.
Yeah, that's more where we step in. But if there's a connection and they're insistent on it, then we do it, because we've had to do a lot of re-education of our coworkers, because a return adoption isn't a failure. We look at it as an opportunity to get information out, or to get information about the animal. Even if that animal's gone for 24 hours and the person come back and said, oh man, the dog freaked out on us when we went to sleep that night. Like, all right, well, this animal has anxiety issues. That's something that we can work with. Or we put it in the backyard and it chased our chickens around. Well, that's information that we now have that we're able to tell the next person, and also how we can combat it and any training that we can have for that animal. So we really look at it as an opportunity to gather information.
Right, you gather the information, and then so when your prospective adoptor, you ask about their home conditions. Do you have chickens? And then are they also educated as to how to feed them and that sort of stuff? Because some of that, I mean, one night for an animal to be in someone's home, a new home, they're just as, I mean, I could expect, I mean, it seems like it would take a while for the animal
You'd
to
expect
adapt.
some issues, right?
Yeah, you expect that to happen, but.
Yeah, they're also given, through our shelter program with Science Diet, they're given the same food that the animal's been eating for the whole time, so there's no GI stress issues going on there as far as food or diet. But as far as it is education, yeah, we tell them according to the age, look on the how much you're supposed to feed them. A lot of people think the empty dish is a bad thing for dogs and cats, and it's not.
I know that when I got my Jack Russell Terriers, I was going to get one, and then fell in love with the litter, so I took two, but I was told to read up on them and read up thoroughly on them, because we had a lab before that, and they said this is going to be a totally different game, and so my younger son and I sat down. He was 10 at the time. And we sat down and read everything we could on Jack Russell Terriers. But, he wanted a dog like Wishbone on the PBS series. So, but they were a lot different. And there were times I was, crying, just crying, because they were just so different. There was high energy, but we kept them, and they lived to be about 14 or 16 years old. But, so do you do anything like that, Clint? Do you recommend that they research the particular breed they want to have? I mean, the obvious one, like they're a jogger and they want an old Chihuahua.
Yeah, if there's a situation where the animal doesn't fit their lifestyle, then absolutely we do. So, yes.
Okay.
I guess would be the answer to your question is yes.
Okay. Then my other question is the same question or the same concern that Jean Gilbert brought up when she was here at the last meeting about having more accessibility at the center to make sure that it's open. And I really think that I agree with her, and she wasn't saying it, to go back to the old way. She was just saying make it more available so that you can see if you have that chemistry with a particular pup or cat or animal. Do you think you're going to be doing anything like that, opening it up to more visitors on a drop-in basis, Clint?
Not with the current pandemic. With us now, no. There's no changes looking at right now.
Okay, none at all, no modification?
We haven't discussed it. That's a decision for our management team, and we have not discussed any changes as of yet.
And you haven't discussed it because it's something you don't want to do now, or you just haven't thought about it, or you just, I understand the safety aspect totally, but is it something that you would consider?
If a plan was presented that made sense for both my staff and the animals we care for, that made sense, then yes, we would entertain something, a suggestion like that.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Clinton. Thank you for all your work, and thank you to your staff as well. Thank you, Bernice.
In answer, though, also to your question, Counselor, is that it's not like the only opportunity is to make an appointment. We do off-sites every single Saturday. There are people can come and visit, no appointment necessary, come and visit animals. We just had one a couple weeks ago, right before my surgery. We were at the ASCMV with dogs out in the parking lot, and it was all over. We had a bunch of people come in and stop by. Dogs were in the parking lot, cats were out in the vestibule, the main opening foyer, and people came in.
Was that advertised?
Yes.
Okay, because
Well, it wasn't advertised on the radio, but it was on Facebook.
Okay, because the bulletin has distribution every week to every household in, I think, the greater Las Cruces area. Do you get the bulletin, Manny? And yeah.
I don't
You
get,
You don't?
No.
Well, you should move into the city. No, I know there's a wide distribution, and there's been great ads in there, but I don't think I saw anything about that drop-in or whatever.
Yeah, it was all Facebook driven.
Yeah, if you could put that in there, because not everybody accesses Facebook. Not everybody in the world has, or not everybody in Las Cruces. Everybody else in the world has computers. No. Not every household has a computer or online access, so maybe you can consider that and let people know that there is that option.
Yeah.
And thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you, Councilor Flores. Is there any other questions for Mr. Thacker?
Oh.
Commissioner Ellens?
The food that we give to the dogs, is it grain-free?
No, but that option, I mean, we can special order something. If an animal has an allergy reaction, then we can do that.
What's the typical percentage of grain in the feed?
I would have to look at that and let you know, sir.
Is grain the first item in the menu?
No, it is not.
All right, well, that's a plus.
Yeah, as far as science diet goes, it's in the mid-range for the quality of the food.
Could you bring up the slide on the visitations and the number of adoptions?
Is that the one you wanted?
Yeah, it looks like there were 170 appointments kept and adoptions were 110. Do you know why 60 of those didn't go through?
They did not like or didn't make a connection with the animal they were visiting.
Did they choose the animal online before they came in?
Yes. They're allowed to do as many. We like to do no more than 3 because it gets really fast. But if they're allowed to do multiple animals in one visit, and within their time frame. So it's not just one and done. If they want to say, oh, this one looks cute and this one, they're more than welcome to do that.
How long is the time frame?
Bernice, 30 minutes.
It just seems to me that that's a huge number, given the fact that they came in the first place. Because, I mean, there are some cute dogs.
There are.
Thank you.
Yep.
But you know what? Those numbers don't add up. Oh.
Because a finalized adoption is when an animal is finally signed over or from us, or the person signs for it. So we may have animals that overlap from the last month, like they need surgery, and maybe they come in on the 27th of September, and they have surgery, and they finalize the adoption in November. So that might be those couple days of the give and take for those numbers, yeah. Or if it's an animal that can't have surgery yet for any reason, injured or sick, or then they'll take the animal home, but it still belongs to the ASCMV. And when the surgery is performed and they sign to finalize it, then it's counted as a finalized adoption.
Thank you. Commissioner Ellens and Councilor Flores, is there any other questions? I just had a couple, and sorry, Clint, on the presentation on slide 6, when you're going over the September numbers comparing the last 3 years, is it at all possible, I know if you go to slide 3, the coloring throws me off on that slide because you have the different the years, you have 3 different. This makes sense because you're trying to segregate dogs, cats, and other. But if you go to slide 6, and it's just maybe just me, I'm the only one, but I got totally thrown off, like wondering, like 2020 numbers. It took me a minute to realize that green and that those were put together versus and not two separate, because I kept looking like, where are the tables here? What am I looking at?
Yes, this is Bernice Navarro, and that was pointed out yesterday by Dr. Haddon, and I went and I fixed it on my copy that I have in our file, and I forgot to fix it on this one for the presentation, so I apologize for that.
No problem.
So it has been addressed, and yes, so I will make sure that that is correct.
No, appreciate it, because I think when Clint was going through, I kept looking at this and my mind was trying to make sense of it, and it's pretty straightforward if you just look at the numbers, but
Yeah, so what you're saying is the year 2020 and is green, but the numbers are the same color as 2021. The percentages. I can see the confusion there.
And then the only other thing on slide 7, I was going to ask, and I don't know, I know, we've discussed, particularly when we're looking at the euthanization rates of, the high ones tend to be the medical, the respiratory signs that are transmissible, and I know you had indicated that, a lot of that is related to the high population that's at the service center, at the ASCMV right now. Just more of a suggestion, and I don't know if I'd be curious to maybe have a discussion offline on this, but if you took kind of like what the highest, say the high 20% reasons for euthanasia at the Animal Service Center for, say, a year to date, and if we looked at it, is there anything that we could do to bring that down in the future? So, and I know you had mentioned that Dr. Haddon had been working on trying to treat as many animals as she could, but I'd just be curious to have that discussion to be like, okay, here's where most of our animals are being euthanized for. Here's some of the things, our ideas we have. Is there anything we can look at that might in the future, other than reducing the population, is there anything else we can do within the Animal Service Center that might reduce the euthanasia rate within the facility for those kind of top items? And the reason I say is, you could go down and nitpick every little thing, but if we could look at maybe just those high reasons and see if there's anything else we could look at to do, if there are any suggestions that maybe something, is there something that would take additional investment? Is there any just small changes we could do? Maybe that's something we could identify or approve or consider as a board.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. That's kind of what we were doing before. The board has all but changed over except for Gondola, and we had a general reason for that, and then they wanted more specifics. So that's why we changed to this.
No, and this is perfect. I really appreciate looking at that because I think it really breaks down why you're doing it. And I think the slide itself, I'm just curious, like I said, going to having maybe having a quick discussion or understanding, hey, these are the 2, 3, 4 reasons why the highest reasons that have led to euthanasia, and is there anything else we can do that's reasonable within your power, the staff's power, to try to bring that down?
Okay, yeah, you bet.
So, and I think that's all I had, so I appreciate it, Clint. Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. The first is our Finance Committee. Mr. Enriquez?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. We did have a meeting, Eric Enriquez, Finance Committee Chair. We did have a meeting on October 21st. It was attended by staff only from the city and the Animal Service Center. We did have some discussion on employee salaries, but since that's a discussion item, we can provide input at that time. And so right now, Mr. Josh Sashville will present the report.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Sorry. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Josh Saffel on behalf of the Finance Department of the City of Las Cruces. I would like to present the unaudited financials as of September 30th, 2021. So looking first at our statement of net position, we see in the general fund cash of $1,311,826 and receivables of $319,000, which give us total assets for the period of $1,630,826. We see two liabilities of $70,649, revenue collected in advance of $179,869, which left us an unassigned fund balance of $1,380,308. The Capital Projects Fund showed cash of $29,798 and revenue restricted fund balance of $29,798. We also see capital assets. We have capital assets net of accumulated depreciation of $207,601 and an unassigned fund balance of $207,601. Looking at our change in net position, for the period, we see total revenues of $1,241,236 and total expenditures of $676,252. So for the period, there was a total net change in the positive of $564,984. Looking at the budget to actual, the change in net position, that total revenue of $1.2 million is 32.6% of the budget. The total expenditures of $676,000 were 17.8% of the budget. Of course, our budget parameter is 25%, this being the first quarter of the year. We'll notice in expenditures that everything was under that 25 expense except for the other expenditures. The reason for that is, of course, insurance premiums. We pay those in advance, so that amount is actually higher, and so it makes that budget look a little off. Looking at our revenues versus expenditures, of course, we see that first month of July, that's when both the county and the city provide the 20-some% of what they've budgeted. And so we have a large amount of revenue in that first month, and we see, of course, that drops afterwards. And we see that as the expenditures go up, they start to increase over that revenue. Looking at our percentage of total expenditures, again, the total expenditures were $676,252. Of that, 73% of that amount was personnel expenses, 15% was services, 6% supplies, 5% insurance, and 1% other. And that will conclude the presentation, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Saffel. Are there any questions on the finance report? Okay. Doesn't look like it. Thank you, Mr. Saffel.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to the executive committee meeting. I know this was with myself, well, last time when we met, really, there wasn't a whole lot of discussion. A lot of our discussion really centered around the special meeting that was held around the JPA, trying to plan on that. And that was really about all that we discussed at that time. Just I think we were trying to get a better idea of where we wanted to go and make sure we, as a board, knew where we were going. So, but that's kind of my quick update for the executive committee. I don't know if there's any questions. All right, well, then move on to facilities. I don't know, with Mayor Pro Tem out, I don't know if there's any updates by Clint. I'm sorry to make you get up again with it.
Clint Thacker, Executive Director, ASCMV. Just a quick update for that we had. The new center is looking great. They're currently working on underground plumbing and electrical work you see coming up out of the ground. Land leveling is all done. Now you can start seeing where the dog park's going to be located. You can see where the buildings are. So we're excited to see that moving forward. Every Thursday, we have a picture that goes up of the progress from the roof of our existing center, and it goes on Facebook, so you can look at that and see the progress that is being made. The only things I remember at the top of my head we discussed there, we have some preventive maintenance occurring on a lot of our drains in the area. And that's, again, it's preventive maintenance, keeping them from, because dogs do get slipped. Some blankets that might have stuffing in them, or rawhides are notorious for swelling up when they get wet going down a drain. So it's just preventive maintenance for that. They come out once a month, Bernice? Once a month? Every quarter, thank you. Come out every quarter, and that seems to be helping as well. I believe that's all, as far as any major issues that are occurring right now.
Okay. Madam Vice Chair, go ahead.
Thank you, Clint. When do you start your winterization of the center?
I don't think we really have a winterization at the center. And the reason why I say that is our HVAC units on top of the center are HVAC, so they heat as well as they cool. I know that some portions of the machines might be turned off, but that's all up to our building maintenance supervisor. He does a phenomenal job of keeping those up to date and working with the city of getting those done. Around the grounds, we'll tidy up a little bit, some things, but that is a place that is always moving, always working. So anything gets done. I don't think we're at the point yet where we need to get our heaters out, things like that, but they're definitely on standby.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, are there any other questions on the facilities update? I did just want to say thank you to our colleagues here with the city for approving the financing, or the funds for the art.
Yeah.
That's going to be actually installed as part of the Go Bonds at the new Animal Service Center in the park there behind it. So, but thank you all for continuing on with that process.
Yeah. Are you speaking of the
art installation?
Art installation, the front,
the sculpture.
Yeah, it's going to be beautiful. We're looking forward to it.
So, all right. And so I think with that, we're on to agenda item number 6 under discussion items, which is ASCMV employee salaries. You can.
And really the reason why this is on the agenda is just to update you on where we're at. I just want to get to my notes here. I sent out just yesterday, and apologize for the lateness because I thought I did it before my surgery, but it looks like I didn't. But an answer to a lot of the questions that came in our special meeting. We sent the medians and the salary and the wages were on that paper, and that was Councilor Flores' question for that. Commissioner Ellens had questions regarding fringe benefits, and that's on there to review. One that I really liked that Councilor Gonda, Mayor Pro Tem Gonda, said is, what is the average time? Why don't we start tracking with HR involved of how much it takes each step? So I went right back that same day, made a spreadsheet, and I sent it to Bernice and also to our budget analysis, Michael Fuccini, and they were able to, both of them, put dates of when each of these are being met, and then we can start to get data back about how well that's going. So we look forward to getting that data for that. Some of the items we're tracking is improve employee retention, salary wage increase. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong notes, but anyways, we're tracking when it takes for those to be filled, and we're excited to see that data. Mr. Enriquez suggested that we meet with HR. We did so. We had a great discussion with them about the salary increase. It looks like we have a first part of December implementation that we're working towards. We also had Mike Fuccini working really closely with the budget department and validating his spreadsheet. And the department said that they were unable to look at it last week, but hope to look at it this week for that. So we're looking forward to their feedback on that validation. And then we got from HR, we got a current list that matches up fairly well with what we have. For some reason, they have somebody marked as working with us twice, the same person listed twice. And I checked with her, and she is not getting 2 paychecks, just thank goodness. She said she'd like to, but I told her no. And so we're just getting some things cleaned up in that area, but things are moving forward as far as the increase, salary increase. And again, if there are any questions regarding that, I would love to answer the best of my abilities, but you guys, you got the down in the weeds kind of thing when we talked about it a couple weeks ago. And my staff I haven't laid it out exactly to my coworkers yet about what it all entails. I can tell you that I was a very popular person when I went back to work after that meeting, seeing what we wanted to do, and morale was higher than it's been for a while. Just them knowing that this is going to happen and help them out, and not to get mushy, but it made my heart feel good, knowing that I was helping them and was something that they wanted to see done as well.
Councilor Flores?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Clint, how soon do you think you'll get something definitive from HR? You said they didn't have a chance to look at.
Well, that was the budgeting department. So the budgeting department, all we're waiting on is the budgeting to look at Mike's spreadsheet and say, yes, this looks good, because that was a caution that they'd like to have for that. So
you know they're going to say yes? You say we're waiting for them to say yes.
I'm just waiting for them to say yes, you bet.
Well, I'm very happy to hear you.
We've reviewed that thing left and right, top and bottom.
Good.
Mike is very comfortable with the numbers, especially with the contributions that are going to be held with the county and the city. We've done spreadsheets showing that we have B plans in place in case the city comes back or the county comes back and says we don't want to do this much, or the city comes back and says, well, we're only going to do this much. So we have some B plans in place that we'd rather not go to, but because we know that this A plan is going to go through, and we're excited for it.
So you're also talking to the counterparts over at the county, or just to our people here at the city?
We're only talking to the budget department because they're our financial.
Your financial,
people.
Fiscal agent.
Fiscal agent, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Clint. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. Vice Chair Betis-Tubby.
Thank you, Chair. I do see that we have Leanne Demouche from our Finance Department, and Mr. Enriquez, you're here too. So if there's any extra information that the city would like to provide at this time, I think we'd be happy to hear it.
Yes, thank you, Chair and Board Member Stubbe. As Mr. Thacker stated, there was a meeting with HR. One of the concerns were that if there was any increase in wages, salaries, if that would affect the city as a whole, HR said there would be no problem there. So that was the good news. So we can move forward with that. The concerns were that if there was enough salary savings and if the numbers were indeed correct, so they're being reviewed by budget. I don't know if this time if Leanne has anything else she would like to add to the finances.
Board Chairman, we, for the record, my name's Leanne Demouche. I'm the Finance Director. I apologize. The budget analyst for Animal Service Center has been on FMLA. He came back just yesterday off of FMLA. We had one of our other analysts who's not very familiar with the Animal Service Center reviewing it. I did meet with them. Some of our concerns I will mention is that, as you know, we're actually bringing a resolution to council on Monday because we're moving off of being self-insured to the state. It is lowering the premiums. However, also in this resolution, we're going to be bringing to the council that we are moving from 60-40 to 80-20. on the insurance. So that will also affect, because if our JPAs are picking up, any of our JPAs are picking up on the health insurance, dental, then that 80/20 will actually be carried on to the JPAs. So that is one of the other things that we need to look at with the Animal Service Center to make sure that we have that 80/20 coverage for staff that are with the Animal Service Center. I know that I have not personally met with Clint or with Michael to look over this budget. One of our other concerns that budget has conveyed to me is that they want to use salary savings. Well, in the next fiscal year, you're increasing their salaries, correct? And if, let's, go for the max and say you have all positions filled, hopefully, keep your fingers crossed, and it is possible, right? So you've given all these salary increases, and what have you done? You've increased your budget. So we just need to make sure that while, the first thing that we do budget is salaries and benefits when we do our budget process, we just need to make sure that we have the funds available to cover all those salaries and benefits, and then also make sure that we have the funds available for Clint and his staff to do the operations and to cover for the new building that will be hopefully opening in about 6 months or so. September as well. So that is one of the things that I've asked my staff to review. For this fiscal year, the city adopted a budget for the Animal Service Center for $1.75 million. My understanding, I tried to get on the county website to see what they actually approved in their 22 budget. It is not up on the website. I could not see it, but it's my understanding when we reached out to them that their budget is only 1.425. And maybe the commissioners know a little bit more than me, but it's in the JPA, I am unsure. I need to go and read it again. But I think I don't think there's actually any particular number split. But typically we try to do 50-50 in the past. But since there's nothing definite in the JPA, the city can always be higher or the county can always be higher than us. But right now, those are the two things, because if we don't have the budget to cover, afterwards the salaries and the benefits for operations, then at the new fiscal year, 23, then I'm sure Animal Service Center will need to come back to this board to ask for additional coverage for that. So those are our concerns, and we need to, I apologize, but we just need to spend a little bit more time, and we'll meet with Clint and the Finance Committee and Mr. Enriquez as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Leanne. I appreciate that, and I think, of course, we want to see staff paid fairly and justly for all the work that they do, and they give so much, but we also want to make sure it's sustainable. And so by doing it thoroughly and looking at all those factors, I think that we'll be able to give proper recommendations. And thank you, Chair.
And Mr. Mish, I just wanted to at least provide what the response I got from our finance department on Tuesday, which I had forwarded to Clint, is that we approved $1.45 million. Okay. At least that's the email that I read here, is that was what the amount is, or at least that's what's in the budget, so.
Okay, and for the budget for Animal Service Center, that is what we have right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Councilor Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Mush. So I always have a question about salary savings. What happens with those savings? I think of savings, and I think of a savings account, and you get like a 0.0001 interest, and unless you have a CD, which is like a 3 or 4%. What do you do with that money? I mean, what is done with? I don't mean you, but how is it considered a savings when we have vacancies, and then we're still this whole thing just blows me away. And I've come to understand it a lot better by because of your tutelage after 4 years, and I'm still like scratching my head a lot, but I'm understanding a lot more. But the part I just don't get, or just don't understand the rhyme or the reason as to why we would call it a savings or whatever when we have vacancies. And it seems to, and yes, it's true that healthcare package, it's wonderful. But it seems to me if we've had, like the city's had like a $5 million savings type of thing, does it just stay at 5 million, or do we put it into something like a CD at least, or what do we do with that? And for the life of me, I can't understand how we can't project salary increases as part of that quote savings, and then to deal with vacancies. Can you explain that to us?
I sure can.
Or to me, maybe I'm the only dense one.
No,
up here.
no, I sure can, Councilor. It's actually, it's in the budgeting. So what happens is, I'll give you, we'll use Animal Service Center as an example. So maybe Clint has a total of, how many? 62 staff members, okay? So what happens is when we get ready to start budgeting, which we kicked it off actually today. We're doing budget training today for staff, okay? So we're gonna be kicking off the budget next week. I think we have individual meetings with the counselors, the budget team does, along with some, David Cedillo from Public Works. So we're kicking ours off. It's like one ends and a new one begins for us, so we never stop. So let's say Clint has 62 employees. When he's budgeting his budget, he may have some vacant positions, and he's strategizing. He and Mike, and I'm sure Bernice are sitting down saying, okay, we're gonna fill this position, and it's probably gonna take us about 3 months, 4 months to fill that position. Because they've got to put the position out there, people have to apply, people, they have to interview these people, and there's a process. There's a process that takes some time to get them filled. So there's 4 months, okay, that nobody has been in that position. And so when we budget, if we have an open position when we're getting ready to do our budget, typically what we will do is we will say, hey, this position is vacant right now. So what we're going to do is we're only going to budget 3/4 of the year for that position right there. But however, you may have somebody that's in a position, the new budget season starts, and 1 month later they resign, or they terminate, they move, or they retire. So now we have this open position that is budgeted for the full year's salary for this person. And let's say this person is also, and I apologize for being so long on this, but let's say this person has been in that position for a while and they've grown in salary. So now Clint may be looking for somebody at entry level, and he's not going to probably be able to fill it for 3 or 4 months. So he's going to have 3 or 4 months of this vacant position, which has a budget tied to it. So that's where that savings comes from. We call it position savings or salary savings. So there wasn't somebody in this position, so you have those funds and they're sitting there in the budget, do you see? And so if for some reason he may need to say, hey, I want to go out and buy something, I need a new washing machine. I need a new washing machine, and I have 4 months of salary savings over here for this position. I want to move it down into operations or capital and buy something. So that's what we do. It's not a savings account anywhere. It's money that's budgeted for that position. However, if it's vacant, we can move it and put it somewhere else and use it for something else.
Leanne, is that then, but while that money is, while it's not being used, it's been allocated but not being used.
Correct.
I understand that. Thank you. And the part I don't understand is the money's been allocated, and where is that money that isn't being used? It seems to me that, I mean, because we're one of the top-rated cities in the U.S. in terms of, thanks to you and our finance department and all that, and budgeting. But is that money growing somewhere?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would expect it was growing. So is that allocation then also increased as a result of that growth?
So,
It should be.
So we have, of course, we have money in the bank with our bank, U.S. Bank, that the council approved several years ago. And we do have 4 other agencies that not agencies, but we do invest our funds. We have CDs, we have money markets, we have treasury bonds. I mean, we have you hear in economics, don't put all your eggs in one basket. We don't put all our eggs in one basket. We have 4 different financial management firms that we use to make our investments. And so, yes, the money is invested. Now, it's
Is that growth factored into those unfilled positions? So for example, say you're, just keep it simple for my.
So what we do is
But let me give you how I'd like to understand this. So say someone's getting paid $15 an hour, okay? Let's just leave it at $15 an hour. And let's make it $20 an hour. Let's make it so I could at least have a hamburger once a week away from home when you're busy. Okay, $20 an hour. That position isn't filled. That money stays there ad infinitum. Okay, that $20 has been already allocated into the budget, but that $20, if it's set into a CD, money market, whatever, is growing. Does that increment attach to that unfilled position? And that's where I'm saying it seems to me that that money could be used to fill that position and then some. Does that make sense? Or do I make sense?
Yes and no. So in a nutshell, I'll put this in a nutshell. So we do all the money that we have invested. So what we do is, as you know, we have, too many funds, but we have hundreds of funds. So every fund, we look at what that balance of that fund is, and we look at what our investment is. Every single fund, every quarter, gets a certain portion of that investment income. And you will see when you look at the books of each of the funds, there is an object code in there. Remember our object codes? There's an object code in there that says investment income. And every month, the Treasuries Department that takes care of all the investments, they take, here's the big number of what we got for investments for the quarter, and they trickle that revenue into each of the funds, showing that as investment income. Does that make sense, Counselor?
Yes, and that's what I would imagine. That's why that's what I expected the answer to be. So why isn't there more money available for each department?
So the investment income is put into each of the funds.
Okay.
So the revenue that comes in for, let's say, for the general fund, which is most of our operating departments, it is, when I give you a presentation, just like I recently did for the Finance Select Committee, there is part of the other revenue is investment income. And so it is part of the revenue, yes, ma'am.
So that $20 an hour that wasn't used has grown, which means there's more funds in that kitty.
Right. And
no pun intended.
And Animal Service Center does have an object code in their revenue for investment income.
Okay. So there is money in there that we can that can be utilized.
Yes, but you have to remember, investments are not very good right now. Our investment ratio right now is about 1.27. So it's very, very low.
Very low, but it's still there.
It is still there, yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Leanne, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. Is there any other questions for Ms. Demouche or Mr. Thacker? Okay,
Thank you,
thank
Chair.
you, Ann. Okay, then we'll move on. I think we're on to public input portion of our agenda here. So if there's any members of the public that are present that would like to come up and speak, they're more than welcome to come up to the podium. Good morning, Mr. Bryce.
Good morning. Frank Bryce, Humane Society of Southern New Mexico. These meetings are getting smoother and easier and more pleasant every time I come down here. But I'm always coming down with sort of a complaint, and I apologize for that. To make it shorter, we got an email from Animal Control for the city and for the shelter about microchipping being registered at the shelter. I've got 17,000 sheets I'm willing to take to the shelter if they want to sort through them and do all that. They're already registered with the company that does that. This is double duty. I was told that the shelter's not an enforcing agent, and if the animal control for the city wants to do this, that's kind of up to them. But it's a double duty. That's a waste of time. We've been doing this for a long time. And like I say, we've done 17,000 for our organization. And right now, we're actually paying $3 to the vet that does it to supplement their income and make it still reasonable for the public. Somehow we need to rethink that policy. How the shelter supports it with animal control for Las Cruces could be ironed out, but that's really the big issue right now. I hate to see this double duty on these chips. We purchased microchip scanners for all types of people. The issue that I have primarily is if you register with the city, and the city says they're going to look it up, animal control essentially is only on duty from 8 till 10, I believe, 8 in the morning till 10 at night. The rest of the time, we get the calls after hours. I got a call, sometimes we get them in the middle of the night, like 4 a.m. We can still look it up, but that's not registered at the city is not going to be of any value outside the hours that the chip is registered at the shelter. The shelter has to be there to look it up. I'm not quite sure how this is supposed to work, but it's really irritating to me to see us double duty. And I am more than willing to haul all 17,000 of those sheets of paper to Animal Control for Las Cruces if they want to enter them in their books. But I don't see why we're punishing the shelter to do that when it's not necessary because they're already registered with the company that we do it with. We've been pretty successful. There's some flaws in it, but even if it's not registered by the owner, we register ours for the owner, and we tell them to check it in 10 days, make sure we did it. It's working very well for us. I haven't had any problem to speak of at all to track an animal down, regardless. It's this extra work that you're committing the shelter to some degree. This seems like a waste. And that's the only thing I have really discussed this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryce. Okay, are there any other members of the public that'd like to provide input?
A very short introduction. My name is Nancy Sharp, and I live in the, in the county. And I am here representing a group that formed this summer called Animal Companions. And we're attempting to come up with a solution for the lack of emergency animal care here. You may have seen the article in the bulletin. Don Duncan was interviewed. And this is our first representation or attendance at this meeting as an organization, so I just wanted to take time to introduce us and to let you know that we're actually determining whether we want to incorporate as a 501c3. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, is there any other public input at this time? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to chair and board comments. Are there any comments from the board? Commissioner Ellens, I see your light on. Did you care to comment?
Yeah, I noticed that we did not get a presentation from one of the rescue groups this month. Why is that?
And that falls on me, Commissioner Ellens. I had asked that we have the Coalition for Pets and People be added on the agenda, but I did not reach out to Mr. Hahn, and so we'll get that corrected in November and December.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Madam Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. It is almost November, so I believe that's about the time that we need to do the evaluations for our ASCMV director. And so I would request if we could hand out those evaluation forms to the members of the board so that we can set up a meeting to facilitate all that.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We'll make sure we get on that so that way we get on our timeline, or we're set for that. Okay, any additional board comments? Okay, then we'll move on to the adjournment. If I can get a motion and a second to adjourn.
Wait a minute, next meeting.
Oh, the next meeting will be scheduled on Wednesday, November 17th, 2021, which is not in our normal the normal routine of the month because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So again, that's Wednesday, November 17, 2021 at 9 a.m. here at the City Council chambers, or if you log in, tune in through the webcast, you can find it at the usual channels. So thank you for that, Councilor Flores.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, and like I said, I'll entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved by Flores.
Second, Abeda Stufi.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and if there's no objections, we'll call this meeting adjourned at 10:27 a.m. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next month, November 17th.